All right, welcome to the shop. For your first lesson, we're popping the hood and getting right to the heart of the machine. Forget about all that mess of wires and tubes for a minute. Today, you're going to understand the engine. Okay, let's get into it.
You've probably looked in there 100 times and wondered, how does all that metal and noise actually make a 2-ton car move? Well, by the end of this, you'll see it's not magic. It's just good old mechanics. Come on, let's get our hands dirty.
So what's the whole point of this thing? It's actually pretty simple. An engine's one and only job is to turn the chemical energy in fuel into the physical motion that spins your wheels. That's really it. And the way it does that, well, it's pretty dramatic.
We call it an internal combustion engine. And the name says it all. The fire happens on the inside. Now, this is way more efficient than those old school steam engines, right? Where you had to burn coal outside the engine just to make steam. Internal combustion lets us pack a huge punch in a much smaller package. And that's perfect for a car.
Here's the core idea, and I want you to really get this. We're basically harnessing thousands of explosions. Yeah, you heard me. Every single minute you're driving, this metal block is containing and directing a constant, rapid-fire series of detonations just to get you down the road.
This is my absolute favorite way to explain it. You know how a potato cannon uses a little burst of hairspray or whatever to fire a potato in a straight line? We're doing the exact same thing. But instead of a potato, we've got a heavy-duty metal piston. And instead of just shooting it out into a field, we capture that linear force and cleverly turn it into rotation.
Okay, so how do we make those explosions happen over and over and over again in a useful way? That, my friend, is where the four-stroke cycle comes in. This is the rhythm, the very heartbeat of pretty much every car engine on the road today.
So let's break down this brilliant little dance. First up, intake. The piston drops down and it sucks in a mix of air and fuel. Next, compression. The piston shoots right back up, squeezing that mixture super tight. See, the more you compress it, the bigger the bang. Then, power. A spark plug ignites that mix, creating an explosion that violently shoves the piston down. That single stroke is what makes everything happen. And finally, exhaust. The piston rises one last time, pushing all those spent fumes out the tailpipe. Intake, compression, power, exhaust. It's a dance that happens thousands of times a minute.
So let's meet the key players in that dance. You've got the piston, which is our potato substitute. The valves, think of them as the gatekeepers, opening and closing at the absolute perfect time to let the fuel mix in and the exhaust out. The spark plug, well, that's the match that starts the fire. Then you have the piston rings, and these are so important. They form a super tight seal, so all that explosive force actually pushes the piston and doesn't just leak away. And last but not least, the crankshaft. This is the genius part that takes all that violent up and down motion and turns it into the smooth, spinning force that powers the whole car.
Okay, thousands of explosions every minute creates an absolutely insane amount of heat. I mean, think about it. If we don't manage that heat, the engine will literally melt itself into a useless lump of metal. So let's talk about the engine's real unsung hero, the cooling system.
Get this, a whopping 70%, 70, of the energy from burning fuel just becomes pure heat. Not motion, heat. Now, why so much waste? It's just physics, really. The laws of thermodynamics say you can't ever convert all that heat into useful work. That means the cooling system has to get rid of an incredible amount of waste heat, enough to heat your house while you're just cruising down the highway.
So, how's it work? This map here shows you the basic path. We have this special fluid, we call it coolant, and it's pumped through all these little channels inside the engine block, right where things get the hottest. It absorbs all that heat, then it flows up to the radiator at the front of the car. And there, it releases that heat into the air before it cycles right back to do it all over again. It's a constant loop.
Now, there are basically two ways to get this job done. You've got air cooling, which you'd see on old VW Beetles and a lot of motorcycles. It just uses fins on the engine and a big fan. It's simple, it's light, but honestly, it's not that effective. That's why almost every modern car uses liquid cooling. Yeah, it's a bit more complex, but it gives us precise control over the engine's temperature. And that's way better for performance, emissions, and just making the engine last longer. The cooling system is like a whole team working together. You've got the water pump, that's the heart, pushing the coolant all around. The radiator is the big heat exchanger up front where all the heat gets dumped into the air. The thermostat is a smart little valve that opens and closes to make sure the engine stays at that perfect operating temperature. Not too hot, not too cold. Then there's the pressure cap, which basically works like a lid on a pressure cooker, raising the coolant's boiling point. And of course, the fan, which pulls air through the radiator when you're stuck in traffic and not moving. It's a whole crew dedicated to keeping that engine from melting down. All right, time to put on your technician hat. A car gets towed in, it cranks, but it just won't start. Where do you even begin? We always start with the big three.
This is your fundamental checklist every single time. Number 1, is it getting the right fuel mix? Is it just out of gas or maybe a clogged filter? Number 2, is there a lack of compression? If those piston rings are worn out or a gasket is blown, the engine can't squeeze the air-fuel mix properly, and you're just not going to get a powerful combustion. And number 3, is there a lack of spark? Could be a bad plug, a faulty wire, or the timing could be off. No spark means no fire.
So here's the crucial point. I want you to memorize this sentence. An engine, at its core, is a simple beast. If you give it those 3 things, the right fuel mix, good compression, and a spark at the right time, it has to run. It has no choice. So if it doesn't run, you know for a fact one of those 3 is missing. That's Diagnostics 101.
Okay, now let's move from just fixing problems to actually preventing them. This right here, this is what separates the pros from the amateurs. A little bit of inspection goes a long, long way. And safety? Well, safety is everything.
Here's a quick checkup anyone can do. First, look for external leaks. You're going to check the hoses for cracks or bulges, look for wet spots on the radiator, and check around the water pump. Second, check for internal leaks. Pull out the oil dipstick. If it looks like a milky brown milkshake instead of nice clean oil, you've got a serious problem. That means coolant is mixing with your oil, probably a blown head gasket. Finally, just look at the radiator itself. Make sure air can actually get through it and it's not all clogged up with leaves and bugs.
Now, I need you to pay close attention because this is the most important part of the whole lesson. First off, always wear safety glasses. Always. Second, use the right gloves. But most importantly, never, ever open a hot cooling system. That pressure cap is holding back boiling hot liquid under extremely high pressure. Opening it is like setting off a geyser of scalding hot coolant. It will cause severe burns instantly. You always let the engine cool down completely. There are no exceptions to that rule.
And this right here is the philosophy I want you to work by. Look, fixing what's broken is part of the job, sure. But seeing a worn-out hose before it bursts on the side of the highway, that's the mark of a true professional. Preventative maintenance is the whole game. So, I'll leave you with a question to chew on. There are lots of normal hums and whirs and clicks that happen under the hood. But what's a sound that tells you something is definitely, absolutely wrong? Think about what you just learned. Knowing the answer to that? Well, that's the first step from just being a driver to being a real technician.